skills. Please welcome with me, won't you? All of us.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, guests, fellow ambassador members. Well, you've heard the book, The Secret. Maybe you have. Maybe you've read it. This is The Secret Part 2, My Secret. And skills. We've seen the advertising that the dairy industry puts out. Got milk? Well, my question to all of you is, got skills? Well, when you become a Toastmaster, this organization gives you the opportunity to learn how to speak in a public forum and get comfortable with that type of speaking. However, there's more. There's a secret skill to Toastmasters that everyone learns that participates and becomes active. And that is the secret skill of learning how to be a great listener. Listening skills are very important and very valuable. So listen up. In just a few minutes, or over a few minutes here, I'll go over a few things that you probably are familiar with regard to listening skills. Maybe some things that are new to you that could be helpful in improving your listening skills. And we'll have a little bit of fun along the way. I was speaking to my friend who's having some issues with his wife and conversations and such. And I asked him, so what's the problem? And he said to me, well, my wife complains that I never listen to her. At least I think that's what she said. I think that speaks to a very common problem that we have, that when we are listening, often we are distracted, we're thinking about ourselves. However, when we listen, and in the research that I was doing about listening, and there is a lot of information about learning how to be a great listener on the web. I love the web for this sort of thing. And I found out that there is an association, a worldwide association, organization, dedicated to learning about the impact that listening has on humankind. The International Listening Association. Makes sense. And is founded on this premise that our most basic need comes from the need to want to understand and to be understood. And so in that research and finding out some information about and studies on, well, how do you become a good salesman by learning to be a better listener, or a better student and graduate with honors? What I found was that there are three basic premises of listening that are common along this information, or within this information. Hearing with focused attention. We have two ears, two sets of eyes, or two eyes, two sets of eyes, and of course one mouth. And it was made that way really to understand and to be understood in a much better way. We use how God has made us to become better listeners. And when we do, there is great value. The Word of God tells us that in Proverbs, in the very first chapter, listen, hear, my son, your father's instruction. Don't forget your mother's teaching. And that reminds me of a little story. Two men went mountain climbing and they found themselves in a terrible situation, life-threatening situation. The storm had come up. They really weren't very prepared for the storm. And one man turned to the other and said, it's times like these that I really wish when I was young I would have listened to my mother, what she told me. And he said to her, well, what did she say? I don't know. I didn't listen. Listening skills can be learned, and we can improve upon them. Stephen Covey talks about this in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when he tells us, seek to be understood. Seek to understand. There you go. Before being understood. Seek to understand before being understood. This is critically important in taking on the idea of focused attention when we are listening. So how do we do that? How do we use some of these skills and become better listeners? Well, hearing, really, one of the things that they tell you, and one of the common denominators, if you will, is to minimize the distraction as much as possible. Focus your attention. All of us, and I have said this myself, talk about, I don't remember people's names. Well, I did a little training on this and found out that my memory is not as bad as my wife tells me. In fact, my memory is actually pretty good. The issue is the focus. When we meet somebody new and we really want to know their name, we listen to that name. There's little tricks you can do to try and associate a person's name with that, but really focus on what they're saying. Just that one or two words. My name is Bob. My name is Joe. And then repeat that in your mind a couple of times. If you have an opportunity, maybe you can go back down and write that down, right, at a later time, or you write that person's name down. Or if you're in a large room and a group, you can write the name down. That takes us to the next part of things, which is understanding the information. When you're hearing the information, this is something very interesting, that when we we think, I'm getting ahead of myself, we think 4 times faster than we speak. That's good, because when we want to understand something, we can take some notes. The method of which we learn how to become better speakers is that we get evaluations afterwards. Those people who are evaluating right now, it's real time. They're looking and seeing and trying to remember so that we get good feedback. That's the other part, the understanding. Giving good feedback is the third part, the judging. What is the information that we hear? How do we assimilate this quickly and be able to be corrective or contribute, ask the appropriate question at the appropriate time? This also is a great way to become a great speaker. And so this was very interesting for me to do this, because I have felt that this is an area that I've lacked a lot in my life. I like to talk. I used to get in trouble for talking at school. I'm a sales guy, so I can always talk and talk and talk and talk. But if you really want to sell, if you want to be successful, if you want to be a great student, if you want to have a better relationship with your spouse, learn to be a great listener, and you will truly have value that you can both gain for yourself and offer to others.